I am Greg Romero Wilson, and I'm son of a preacher man. And the subject I'm talking about today is one that's been eating at me for months, much like the concept of starting a third political party, which still eats at me. I mean, even though haven't been doing much with it lately, because quite frankly, I realized I needed to build up a platform and have people believe in my message in order to pull that off. It was like I planted the seed and realized I need some water and some fertilizer and just a lot more ability to make it happen. But with this is another idea. This is another one of those messages that I didn't want to do. I don't want to say this because I feel like, and today it's time to stop the con. Because America has been conned by a con man. And I say this because as the son of a preacher man, I've seen con men my entire life. That's why I'm producing this message. People have said, and it's a cult, and you're like, not a cult, and all this back and forth. But here's the thing. I grew up in cults. My father, before he started his own ministry, he was always searching for the extraordinary experience of religion, not the going to church and you pray and whatever, they have this and you go home and it's all, it always amazed me as a child or even as a teenager when I would go to somebody else's church, growing up in Texas, growing up in the Dallas area, that the church would have the entire service planned out minute to minute in the program. You get a program. You sit down, there it is, 12:01 to 12:10, there's going to be singing of songs, and then at 12:11, the minute, so-and-so is going to read the scripture, and then they're going to have this, a guest speaker, and then the sermon will start at 12:45, and at 1:30, we all get to go home. And I don't even think their sermons were 45 minutes or 30 minutes. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, how do you know it's going to end at that time? How do you know that's it? Because the churches we would go to, they would just sing until they were exhausted, and then they would pray, and then the Spirit would take over, and there would be healing sessions and casting out of demons and all these, and then the minister would maybe a couple, like a couple guest speakers, and then him, and the churches we went to. Service, like the first one that I really remember, as a small child growing up on was in California. It was called Word of Life Fellowship. And you know what? I hesitate to call them a cult. They did some cultish things, but because they still exist, I wonder if it wasn't just sort of, my dad wasn't able to take over the way he wanted, and that's why he left. So I'm not so sure. We went to many other cults, but they did do some cultish things, and that they did isolate everybody and move everyone to the mountains and unfortunately I had an aunt and her family and my cousins, they all went with it, and we were the ones that took them to this church. And some of them still live up in that area, and they still go to this church, but they moved up because it was supposed to be the end of the world. Jesus was supposed to be coming back, before the year 2000, and so everyone was supposed to go up there and isolate from the rest of the world and just be there waiting for Christ. And that was, so in that regards, there was some cultish activity, but I feel like they weren't evil necessarily the way some cults wind up being truly evil. Because, and I say that because the minister who led that group, Tom Shaw, her son wound up, continuing that ministry. And we'll get to family and cult leaders in a minute. But we would start church at like 10 a.m. and we would come out of church at like 9 p.m. Like that's the way the service would work. Singing and dancing and praising and praying and speaking in tongues and going on and on and on. And then the sermon, that would just last forever. And my father took this up. My father, when he would give a sermon until he could see that the audience was exhausted. Until you're out there, then he would find okay, let's wrap it up. You'd have been there like 2 hours. It was amazing how long he could go on. And full energy. The energy I give this, the energy I do in my stand-up is the same energy my father would bring to his sermons. And in fact, it's when I first started doing stand-up, I always loved dirty comedy. Obviously, repressive childhood, not allowed to say anything, and, everything's taboo. So, of course, the second I, it's just going crazy. And we would make these VHS tapes. You had to have somebody come shoot you, and so we make the videotapes of our sets, and I couldn't watch them. To this day, I have a lot of trouble watching them because what I see is my father doing a really filthy sermon. That's what I see. Because it's all the same fire and brimstone, the yelling, the emotion, everything, only instead of, trying to guilt people into turning to Christ or whatever, I'm just trying to make people laugh and have a good time and enjoy their night and take them away from their pain. And if you think about it, the goal is the same. I mean, the goal of church is supposed to be, at its base, it's supposed to be, you take away the pain. You see the signs. Are you stressed out? Jesus has the answers. I mean, you have the answers. You have the answers. Jesus just helps you kind of see them, like it makes you not see them. It helps you accept them, like you accept him, you accept the answer. The answer was right there. You didn't want to take it. You didn't want that answer. So you did everything you could against it, and that creates the friction. Anyways, who knows? The point is, with talking about Trump as a con man, the people that agree with me already agree with me, and people that disagree with me are just going to hate me. So what's the point of doing this? What's the point of talking about it? But I feel like my perspective is unique because I've seen so many con men, religious con men and business con men. Growing up in these cults, this spirit of control, this idea of wanting to control everything, I've seen it over and over and over again. I've seen how people make you emotionally responsible for them, how you are like, whatever they do, it's your fault. So I've seen all these dynamics at work over and over and over again in my life. And the type of con man that Trump is it's the Harvey Weinstein type con man. It is and I worked specifically with somebody from this ilk when I lived in New York, and we built this show, but he built it really in terms of it being a sham, in terms of it being a lie. He built a con. And essentially, what he would do is we would do this crazy stand-up comedy show, and that I was the star of, but he would report that he was the star of, but really he would just come out and introduce me. And then I was the star of the show. And what he would do is essentially they would, the place held like 1,000, or plus people. And so they would give away like 5,000 tickets. They wouldn't sell a thing. No tickets were sold, but they would give away 5,000 tickets, and in exchange for those tickets, they would take your information, and generally your phone number. And they would then, he had, a team of interns that he didn't have to pay, and he would use them to just harangue people on the phone all day, all night, to make sure they were coming to this show. Say, you're coming, right? We got a table for you. You got to come. You got to confirm people 8, 9 times. Then all these people would show up, and 1,000 of them couldn't get in. And he would ruin their nights. And it didn't matter because it looked like this thing was so popular that there's too many people here. Really, it's kind of genius marketing. It's really genius PR, in terms of creating something, but it was bullshit. The whole thing was a lie. So it looked like it was successful, but really it wasn't. And then what he would do is he also ran basically a Ponzi scheme of investment, because it looked like it was a hit show. So people would invest. Then he'd be like, oh, we lost all the money, let me get another investor. And so he just would bring an investment, waste it, And finally, he managed to con the Hard Rock Cafe into bringing it out to Las Vegas. And after, he went through all their money and nobody paid to see it there, then he moved around to different casinos and kept trying to do it over and over, because people, again, he constantly lied and schemed into getting, and with this illusion of it being this very popular show. And it was all a lie. The whole thing was a con. And I knew, and he fucked over every single person he worked with. And I was one of those people. I knew he would fuck me over. And it happened faster than I thought it would, because he needed me, because I created the energy of the show. I was the show. I was the madhouse. And so he needed me until he sold it to Vegas. And literally the second show in Vegas, we did the one show, they made the contract. Second show, he replaced me with himself. And I was furious, but I was furious with myself because I knew he would fuck me too. I knew it because I watched him fuck every single person. They'd come in, he would treat them great. Oh, thank you. Here's our guy, our investor, sit right here. You know what? You're gone. Fuck you. You're out. Oh, they're suing us. Fuck them. They'll never get anything. We got nothing. You know, and just what? Oh, yeah, here's our new person. And it was a horror show to be a part of, because it was like one of those TV shows that you see the behind the scenes of, or behind the music or whatever, and it looks like it's amazing, but then you find out it was just awful. The producers were hellish. Everybody was fighting. You know, people were fucking each other over. That's what this was. It was having to be a party to, but I was conned because he played the classic con on me it's the classic con, which is, without you asking for it, they give you something you really want. And then you owe them. Now, they don't tell you that. They don't act like you owe them. In fact, they act like you don't owe them anything at all. But what they're buying from you is the ability to have you turn a blind eye to their atrocious behavior. That's what it ultimately becomes about. That's the con. Figuring out what you really want, and then without asking you for it, just giving it to you. And they're like, oh my God, they gave it to me. Excuse me. And what you have to understand about that process is they're not just giving you what you want because they think, oh, this is what they want. Wouldn't it be nice if I gave it to them? No, it is a calculated move, because what they do is what you want, essentially they're using your convictions against you. In other words, you are committed to this idea, and so they solve it for you, and then, you know, how can you be against the guy that helped you with the thing that you're wholly committed to? For me, it was about becoming a popular comedian, about being a famous comedian, about rising to the top. So he made me the lead on the biggest show in New York. And while I watched him fuck over person after person after person, I became complicit. Now, I tried to stand up to him many times. God, this was the worst person you could imagine. And these poor interns, he would just shit on them all day. He would shit on everybody, just being an asshole. Just, you get the fuck out of my office. You want to fucking talk to, you need to be on the phone. That was the way. And at first, when we first got offices in Times Square from one of our investors, I got an office. And I would be there, I'd be like, don't talk to people that way when I'm in the office. I can't help what you do when I'm not here. So I compromised. I was willing to I was like, so long as I can stop it while I'm there, then, I get what I want and I get to walk away. But in reality, I was complicit because I watched him screw person after person after person, and I played along because he gave me what I wanted, which was to be on the big stage and have everybody, all the other comics in New York being like, how the fuck can Greg get this? So I accepted the con until he fucked me too. And that's when you know you're really part of a con, is when you are required to give loyalty, complete loyalty. However, their loyalty to you is based on your loyalty to them. In other words, they've demonstrated their loyalty. They gave you what you want. What else do I have to do? I gave you what you wanted. And then if you don't give complete loyalty, oh, fuck you then. Then you're out. People to these, sociopaths, these con men, they're beer cans. That's all they are. They use you and then just throw you away. And I think one of the greatest examples of this right now, I don't know if it's going to happen, but it was saying that Trump is ruined because Barr, his little fucking bulldog, went and said, oh, the election wasn't fraud, we don't see it. And 2 days later, guess what? Trump's considering dumping William Barr. No fucking shit. See, because he's like, you can't do that anymore. You can't lie for me anymore. Bye. And it seems like so what they do is they use the weight of your convictions, whatever it is you're committed to, they give you that, and they use that weight against you. So what your good intentions are, not that mine were very selfish intentions, I'm willing to admit that, but when we talk about Trump, you can literally see it. One group of people at a time. let's talk about Jerusalem. Because when he helps Jerusalem, it's a two birds with one stone situation. Because the evangelicals are very committed to the biblical idea of staying committed to Jerusalem. That Armageddon, everything will come down through Jerusalem, and we want to be on that side so that we're all like, Jesus, hey, we're all good. So he knows that, so he's going to play that. And he knows that the Jews, obviously, the biggest thing, for Jewish people is to have their homeland protected, have Jerusalem protected. So he did a couple things that were clearly pandering. Number one, he just moved you want the embassy in Jerusalem? Done. Which, to me, again, it's a symbolic gesture and one that we should have done the whole time. So I'm not really against the move. But again, that allows him to be like, what? Look what I did. I did this for you. I did it for you. How can you be against me when I'm clear? Look how committed I am. And then the peace accords, which he made with countries that they're not in conflict with. Do you see you want peace in the Middle East? Look, I gave you peace in the Middle East. I gave you these people don't want to kill you anymore. But they weren't actively attacking you. The Palestinians are the ones you have to come to a peace accord with. But they weren't even, they're like, okay, great, okay, whatever, move on, So again, these moves were made so that you would see him go, but he's good to us. Look at he protects our interests. He cares about what we care about. Now, because you are so committed to those interests, then how can you be against the guy that's as committed? It's like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of a thing. Like he's like, in this case, the person who's for what I'm for, that's who I got to be for. He gave us what we wanted. With people that, the farmers that he destroyed the trade with China, which I don't know about you. I've seen nothing but a slowdown in getting goods here. I don't know what was accomplished other than it takes a lot longer to get shit from China. I mean, it didn't bring back manufacturing. It hasn't done, all it did was essentially create a situation where our farmers couldn't sell whatever it is we sell to them, grains or whatever. And so what did Trump do? Just start writing them fat ass checks. They call it Trump cash. If you talk, I read a whole article about it. I don't know, go out there, ask them. This is what I've read, but apparently they got all these checks. So he paid off a lot of people. He said, here's free money. Free money. There you go. I'm not going to let you fall. There. Now you owe me. So he does these things. He goes around. Oh, you like Sheriff Joe? You like Sheriff Joe? You know what? I'm going to let him out of jail. Now you owe me. I mean, everything he did was to create a situation where a particular group owed him. It's as simple as that. And again, he gives you what you want without you even asking for it. And then you're like, but this guy, he's on my side. And what you then do is when you hear about the other atrocious shit, the obvious shit and and the stuff that you suspect is probably true, you're just like, listen, it's like anytime somebody's an asshole, but you have a good relationship with them, it's the same thing in comedy. When there's a comedy club booker that is just an asshole to everybody, but he likes you for some reason. And so when other people are like, fuck that motherfucker and everything, you're like, oh, no, he treats me pretty good. You can't go along with it because he treats you good. Now, here's how you defeat the con. You take the win and you hold them accountable for their actions. That's what you do. You say, look, I appreciate that. And, that is what we wanted. Absolutely. But you're a fucking jackass and you're treating people like shit and I'm not going to support you. I'm sorry. Thank you for what you did. Thank you. And because what you get back is a storm of, how could you? How could you? Look what I did for you, you fucking ingrate. No one's ever going to love you the way that I do. No one's ever going to just do stuff for you the way that I do. This is the emotional con. People do it in relationships. People do it in business. And people do it in religion. And I've seen it over and over and over again in my life. And I think the real tragedy, if I'm being honest, the real tragedy of all of this, to me, there is tremendous tragedy to go around, particularly when we talk about the children at the border. The horrors that we're going to find out in the future, I think it's going to taint our reputation to ourselves for a long time. But in terms of the American people, I think the real tragedy is just how many good people have been conned by this Antichrist. Because, okay, think about what it means to be conservative and have, Christian values that you claim and all this. The guy, he does none of that. Just like I said before, look at the fruits of the Spirit. He displays none of them. He's not a Christian. Conservatives are all about traditional marriage. He's been married 3 times and cheated on all of them. We have nothing but piles of evidence about him cheating on Melania. Like, it's not like he's reformed, like, oh, but no, he didn't. And don't give me that argument about, well, God can use a donkey. See, that is the con. That is religion playing into the con. They've given you an excuse to turn a blind eye to atrocity. And again, I'm saying all this knowing full well anybody that actually needs to hear it is not going to receive this message. But I don't know. It's one of those things when something's inside of you and it's clawing its way out, you have to let it out. And this message has been inside of me saying, we have to stop the con. People need to see the way cons work, and it's okay to realize you've been conned. The important thing is to wait. And again, now let's talk about cults, because this is a cult-like situation. Because what happens in a cult, every cult, is you believe you have the truth. The truth is always a factor in the con of a cult. Even look at Nexium. Look at which is the current one that's out. Look at Jim Jones, Heaven's Gate, all these things that ended in utter destruction. Every cult, even the ones that are still thriving, okay, revolve around we have the truth, and whatever they say the truth is a lie. Now this guy, he coined the phrase fake news. Same thing. Same thing, different name, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Okay, you're saying that I have the truth, they're telling lies. And every cult is based around that feature. That what we have is the truth, and what they have is a lie. Now, what I have found in the process of truth is there are facts and there are non-facts. And truth is always a matter of perception. And that's why you can lie about it. That's why you can make up your own truth. And if people believe it, that's why it becomes the truth. It's like what they say, like in sports, and people are superstitious about sports. They're like, listen, if you believe it works, it works. Exactly, because you've developed a truth that you believe in. And even when it fails, when you believe that it will work the next time, and if for some reason it does, it reconfirms the original truth. When in fact, it was just the law of averages, and sometimes it's not going to work out, sometimes it's going to work out, and that's just the way life goes. So truth, when people say this is the truth, that's not the truth. We have the truth. That is the clearest sign that you're dealing with a cult that's trying to make you deny facts, deny obvious reality for their truth. It's very difficult. And you probably think to yourself, well, the Bible talks about being truth. If you read the Old Testament, which I have, every word, I've read every single word of the Bible, start to finish, from Genesis 1:1 to Revelations, whatever. What you see is that the Old Testament is really a collection of stories that demonstrate the human experience, and they demonstrate the nature of you reap what you sow, of the golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated, that bad things happen to good people, that God sometimes does great miracles and sometimes God doesn't. That we are all subject to the rules of the universe, that what you put out there is exactly what you get back. And that's what it's about. It's about demonstrating through a series of stories, of allegories, of things. Just say, look, whatever you've experienced, people have experienced this. And it works out. This is how stuff like that works out. So it is a collection, being a collection of stories. It is in its own way a collection of what could be called historical facts. Or story. I mean, these are people and their stories of what happened to them, and consequently how those things played out. So I think there is a bit, but again, one thing that I've noticed, and I say this about the internet is just like the Bible in this way. Anytime people take little bits from here and here and here, I used to notice this all the time in these churches. They would take this quote from this book of the Bible, then they take this quote from this book of the Bible, and they take this quote from this part of the Bible, and they string those together to create a truth. Any truth can be created from a select group of facts. And that's what the internet is. People just look for a fact that supports this, a fact that supports that. Oh, here's my truth. So this is my truth, drawn from the facts of my life. You know, you take the good, you take the bad. You take them both, and there you have the facts of life. Listen, guys, I know I'm preaching to the choir on this one, but you stop the con. This is a great con. You stop the con by taking the win and holding them accountable and disassociating yourself from them and not taking any more wins. Just saying, thank you for that win. Good enough. You're a piece of shit. We're done. It's what I should have done with that show in New York. And I live with that regret. When he finally butt fucked me, I was like, okay, I was mad. I mean, I knew he would do it, and I hated him for it, but really I was mad at myself because I always knew it was coming, and I didn't get things squared up the way they should have been in advance and made it a purely business relationship. Instead, I allowed myself to be part of the con. That's it. I say these words in hopes that somebody hears me and gives a shit, but probably not. And anyway, life goes on. But that's what this podcast is for, to allow me to, blah, 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 all those things. And that normally only my wife has to put up with. You guys, take care. God bless. Good luck.